Today I'll be working with tin. Welcome to my channel where my aim is to be creative on a budget. These cute little Christmas trees are going to be the end product. Now part of the supplies you'll need include tin snips, safety glasses, gloves, a Sharpie, a file, and pieces of wood for the trunk. And of course you'll need your tin. Any piece of tin will do. These are old samples of tin that my neighbor, when she installed tin in her house, she had ordered some samples and she didn't know what to do with them, so she gave them to me. Now there's a front and back side to each of these samples, and sometimes the back side even has writing on them. So we're going to use the back side to put our pattern on. Now I made some templates on cardstock from my Cricut machine, but you can just draw them out with a ruler if you don't have one of those, or trace any pattern you want on them. And I'm just using a Sharpie to trace my pattern. So now with your gloves on, you use your tin snips just to cut along your line. Very simple. This is very thin tin, so the tin snips make quick work of it. After cutting, the edges of the tin will be sharp and sometimes jaggedy. I like to lay it against the edge of the table and just run my file along both sides of the piece of tin. Now I also like to take the tin snips and cut the very tip of the sharp pointy edges, just for safety's sake. And don't forget to wear your safety glasses when you're cutting. You don't want any tin to fly up into your eyes. And just continue to file down the edges until you're happy with how they feel. I like to very carefully, softly run my fingers along the edges just to make sure I got all the burrs and points off. Just be careful when you do this. Don't put too much pressure because you don't want to cut yourself. The triangle Christmas tree is the easiest Christmas tree to cut out, but if you wanted to get more fancy, you can also cut out a more jagged outlined Christmas tree. And you'll notice I also left the bottom straight. That's just so it can sit flat inside the block of wood for the trunk. Here I'm going to be cutting out some little stars from the scrap pieces of tin, just in case I decide I want to embellish my Christmas trees a little more. And here's everything cut out. The stars are a little bit more jagged because the cuts were just a little bit harder, so now's the time you have to file everything down. And then of course you will take your tin snips and cut the very points off of the stars just so they won't be so sharp. Now you need to decide which type of wood you want to use for the trunk. You have various options. You can use branches you have cut from your yard, like this is a crepe myrtle. This next one here is a piece of cypress branch. And another option could be just plain old wood you get from your lumber yard, like this is a 2x2. I'm going to use my blade runner to cut a slot in the wood. Now you want to leave the branches long when you cut the slot so your fingers don't get close to the blade. Now I'm doing it both with my branch here, and then I'll be using it with my 2x2. You can't really see the slot as well on this, but you'll see it better with the 2x2. Now if you don't have a blade runner, of course you always have the option of cutting it with a handsaw. And I did have to cut my crepe myrtle branch with a handsaw because I forgot it was a hardwood and the blade runner would not cut it very well. Make sure you cut the slot deep enough so that your Christmas tree sits securely in there. If it's deep enough, you might not even have to use glue on the trunk, and that would make the storage easier. You can just take it apart. I cut my trunk 1 inch, but you have the option of cutting it however long you want it, of course. And always cut the slot first before you cut the trunk, just so that your fingers aren't close to the blade. Next, sand down any jagged edges left over on the wood from cutting. And now you're done with the basic tree. You always have the option of gluing if you want. Now with the wood blocks, you can leave the wood plain, you can stain it, or this one I went ahead and painted it. It was an old piece of wood and the wood jaggedness looked like icicles to me, so I painted it with a burr on it. And if you want, you can hot glue a star to it. There's various ways to embellish it. This one is just wrapped in a copper tie wire. This other one, I put a wood snowflake on it. This is the metal star that we had made earlier. And then the last one is just some Christmas embellishments. So you can decorate your tree any way you want, or you can just leave it plain. Thank you for watching. If you like this content, please hit the like or subscribe buttons. I'm just starting my channel up, but I have a lot of ideas. In the next couple of weeks, I'll be doing more Christmas repurposing projects. Please stop by again. Thanks.